Maine's Supreme Court clears the way for the first ever use of ranked choice voting in a presidential election. The court's decision comes just 6 weeks before Election Day. Opponents of the voting system failed to collect enough signatures to trigger a people's veto referendum. It would have blocked Maine voters from ranking the presidential candidates. Instead, voters will be able to rank the candidates in order of preference instead of choosing just one when they cast their ballots on November 3rd. So here to explain what this all means is CBS News campaign reporter Cara Korte. All right, so people may have heard of ranked voting, not obviously for presidential stuff, maybe for a primary ballot. So how does ranked choice voting work, and how are the ballots counted?
The goal of ranked choice voting, Anne-Marie, is to find a majority winner rather than a plurality winner. When you think about the presidential elections, we all know how that works. The person with the most amount of votes in a state wins the electoral votes for that state. Ranked choice voting is a longer process, and how it works is choice happens until a winner gets more than 50% of the vote. So what does that mean? If there are more than two candidates on a ballot, voters instead of voting for one person, rank their choice. So if there are three candidates per se, a voter can rank 1, 2, or 3 to say what their preference is. And if the first round of results come in and no one candidate receives more than 50% of the vote, what happens is the candidate with the least amount of votes is knocked out of contention, and all the ballots are taken for the number one cast of that last placing candidate. So whoever gets last place, those ballots are taken. The people who voted first place for that candidate, their second choice is then considered. So the second choice for the last place candidate is then reallocated to the remaining candidates. So that those rounds are performed until one person ultimately gets 50% of the vote. So it takes a little bit more time, but proponents of ranked choice voting say that it reaches a true majority rather than just a plurality winner.
So, Cara, I'm guessing, I mean, if you're a voter, this could potentially lead to some confusion at the polls on election night. I mean, I'm guessing that that may be how some people feel, even though you explained it very clearly. Not everybody has a pocket Cara Korte to carry around with them, although they can carry CBSN and listen to what you just said. But I think it'd be hard for people to understand all of what you just laid out.
Yes, I'm on a diet, Vlad, but I'm not pocket-sized yet. I'll let you know when I get there. You're absolutely right. This is an unconventional system, right? And that is what opponents of ranked choice voting say, is that it's just confusing for people. People don't understand what they can do. Actually, voters don't even have to rank all the choices that they have. You can rank as few or as many people as you can. But yes, the confusion is an important factor. And Maine actually experienced a bit of confusion and controversy in 2018 with ranked choice voting, and they want to avoid that this time. Their U.S. congressional race in 2018 saw a Republican incumbent lose his seat to a Democratic challenger only after that Republican earned the most amount of votes in the first round. So that's an example where someone can win the first round but not win the ultimate election, because in second round of voting, the Democratic challenger surged from second to first place. So it can be confusing, but Maine is doing the best they can to educate their voters. In fact, one of the reasons why this decision came out as it was because the Secretary of State there said that they had already printed their ballots for ranked choice voting, which has obviously a different setup than an ordinary ballot. So he said it would be so expensive to have to reprint ballots. So they're dealing with this adjustment, but they're moving forward.
So, you know, what you just described there, is that part of the reason why, you know, some opponents say that ranked choice is unfair, even unconstitutional?
That's right, Anne-Marie. So the leading group that was challenging this decision was the Maine GOP. And what happened here, the full timeline was that in 2016, Maine voters supported a referendum to implement ranked choice voting for this upcoming 2020 presidential election. So we knew that this decision was coming, but Maine GOP fought the decision because, in their opinion, ranked choice voting goes against one person, one vote. They say that it's confusing, and as you said, their argument is that it's unconstitutional. What happened was, as you explained in the beginning, the GOP filed this petition. The Democratic State Secretary of State in Maine said that their petition was signed by out-of-state voters, and so the Supreme Court in Maine went with the Secretary of State's argument, kept the GOP from blocking this decision, and so we believe that it's going to move forward. Though the GOP has said they're going to review this decision. They might take it up in federal court. It might even, it's a small chance, but it might even go to the Supreme Court. But do know that ranked choice voting has been tested in federal court twice before in Maine, and it has been upheld twice before. So even though there are opponents to it, there's reason to believe that it will move forward for this historic election.
So which other states use this voting system?
It's a complicated question, Vlad, just like we're learning so much about election and voting this year. Every place is a little different. In Maine alone, they don't even use ranked choice voting for all of their elections. It's actually unconstitutional in Maine for ranked choice voting to be used in their gubernatorial election, which makes this jump so significant that they're now using this for a president election. It's used in some big cities for local and citywide elections, like San Francisco, Oakland, Minneapolis. They use ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting was actually also used in a few Democratic primaries this year in Alaska, Hawaii, Wyoming, and Kansas. And in New York City, just this past November, voters chose to implement ranked choice voting for citywide elections, even for the mayoral primary in 2021. So it's something that's been around for a while, kind of sporadically, but it does seem to be becoming more prevalent.
You mentioned that Maine cannot use it in their gubernatorial election, but there is a race for Senate coming up. It's a closely watched race, and it could be a factor.
That's right. And why this matters, Anne-Marie, is some people argue more so for the Maine Senate race than the presidential race. In the presidential ballot in Maine, there are 5 candidates on the ballot, obviously including President Trump and Vice President Biden. In the Senate race, there is the incumbent Republican Susan Collins, her Maine Democratic challenger Sarah Gideon, and 2 other challengers. And though current polling, just yesterday a Boston Globe poll, showed that Gideon is ahead of Collins by 5 points, that may seem like a decent lead, but when you think about ranked choice voting and how voters vote in Maine, think back to 2016, where Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 3 points in Maine, but actually 7% of the vote went to third-party candidates, split between Jill Stein and the Libertarian candidate Gary Peterson. So when you think about how votes are allocated in Maine, they vote uniquely. They're used to casting their vote for third-party candidates. So in a race like the Senate race, which is closer than the presidential race, we'll see if people's votes who go first round for third-party candidates really end up closing the gap between the Democrat and Republican there in the close Senate race.
Really important information and reporting there, Cara. As always, thank you very much.